Welcome to Perceptions Today podcast, where we discuss consciousness in all forms. April 2022, episode 21, RN Vooght joins us to discuss The Spirit in the Sky, part 1 of 3. RN Vooght is a passionate researcher, along with being an author of The Spirit in the Sky, Ancient Cosmological Gods and Where in the World We Find Them, DMT, Deities, Myths and Tryptamines, and also Devolution Cycle.
And he's given me the major honour in my life anyway of issuing one of my articles in the book The Spirit in the Sky, Ancient Cosmological Gods and Where in the World We Find Them as author of the month, which has given me a platform to do what I'm doing today and to continue writing. And yeah, I can't thank people like that enough, you know. May long it continue. So yeah, thanks, Paul.
This is an instance of the conversation coming up in the roundtable discussion. Participants knew it was being recorded.
Quickly go over those.
Paul, I have to apologize. My intuition prompted me to remind you to hit record, and I did not. I failed you. I'm sorry.
Right, that's good. Right, let's just check. Recording is working now. That's good. Look, got into the right room.
Take number 2.
Precisely. It wouldn't be that. I mean, if we ever got one of the three straight, it would be hilarious.
I really appreciated Paul's live panic attack. It was very entertaining. Like the world was about to end. Pause. Stop. You're hilarious.
It's because it's good old Richard's one, and obviously I said, I've got 22 of these backed up that I need to edit, and it would be hilarious to go, we've just done 3 hours. Can we do it again? Because I've just missed the one that I thought we'd have.
It's a glitch in a matrix, buddy. Just blame the machine elves. That's all it is.
Oh, I don't. I just enjoy the chaos and them. Right. Okay. Everybody pause. Going through this quickly. Deep breath. I'm watching this recording button. Good. It's all good. Enjoy the chaos. Yeah, there we go. I didn't know it's recording. Right. Okay. Welcome to Perceptions Today. It's UK date 2022. It's the 8th of March. It's the 6-month anniversary of these Twitter Space events where we do have no problems at all and it all goes smoothly. It's Twitter Space Chat number 24. We have a great pleasure to introduce RN Vooght, commonly known as Rick or Richard, depending on how you want to call him. We have many new events that will be turning up, which happen to be on the 10th of March at UK 7 p.m. We've got Laird Scranton coming to talk with a question and answer session, which will be on Zoom. Then on the 22nd of March, we happen to have Mike Frito, who happens to be an author and in the room. He will be talking about imagination, consciousness, and revolution. That will be UK time, 7 o'clock as well. And then on the 23rd of March, UK time, 7 p.m., is Stephanie Quick coming back to talk about synchronicities. Then we go into April, and we happen to have on the 6th of April between 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Anthony Peake coming back to talk about basically a meet and greet again, which is good. So the last 3 that I've mentioned will be Twitter Space events. We also have many more events and also podcasts. We also have the Perceptions Today community page on YouTube, as well as our own page. You can find all of these under the bio link in Twitter, or you can find it in Linktree, which is linktr.ee/perceptions today. If you want to go through and have a conversation with RN Vooght today, obviously make sure that you raise your hand and we can give you the access and make sure that we don't over talking. We'll make sure that the hands go up in sequence, we get those, and also make sure that we go back on track. My name is Paul of Perceptions Today, and Melissa is of Centered Awareness, my co-host. Thought I'd change it around. And then, obviously, Melissa, do you want to say hello? And then you can introduce RN Vooght.
Hi, my name is Melissa of Centered Awareness. I'm Paul's co-host. Welcome to our 6-month anniversary for the Perceptions Today community. We're very excited to have you all here. Very excited to also have RN Vooght, Richard, who is a well-known author and researcher. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you so much, guys. That was a little bit deja vu. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Like I said, prior to the record button being switched, Paul, it's nice to see so many friendly faces in the room. So hopefully that will settle a few nerves and bits and pieces. But yeah, a little bit about myself, I guess. First of all, I'd like to say I don't claim to be a chemist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a geologist or an Egyptologist, just a curious researcher and writer. Realistically, because of this, the nature of my research, albeit linked to religion somewhat, it's certainly not my intention to offend anyone. So yeah, you can run with this information or run away from it. The choice is entirely yours. But back to who am I and how did I get here? I always really had an interest in all things ancient, and my curiosity was initially piqued after reading Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods some 25 years or so ago now. And I always wanted to kind of contribute towards the cause somewhat, but didn't really want to simply regurgitate the offerings of other authors. I wanted to bring my own, I guess, proverbial piece of the prehistoric puzzle to the table and see what people make of it. That said, back to my background, I was a member of the European Space Agency's security team, and my commitment and my schedule, because of that, it was almost impossible for me to find the time to actually put pen to paper and write some of this stuff down. And I spent a lot of time discussing my research with colleagues who basically implored me to write it down and put it out there. And by twist of fate, I somewhat fell into the writing escapades, quite literally, because after taking a fall in the South American jungle about 10 years or so ago now, I was actually flown home directly the next day, was given 3 spinal surgeries, and it was during my rehabilitation from said surgeries that I actually found the time to put pen to paper and write my first book, Devolution Cycle, which is a fictional tale loosely based upon prehistoric and historic anomalies, alongside Tesla's Warden Hill electromagnetic energy tower and the Great Pyramid of Giza. And it's a story which I'm still quite proud of, but it's really
worthwhile reading. I've read it.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much. It's got a couple
I wouldn't tell people to go and read things that I found boring.
It was a fun
Only if they annoyed me. Only if they annoyed me.
I'm sure I've annoyed you on more than one occasion, buddy. But no, I'm still extremely proud of putting Devolution Cycle out there. As I say, it was a fictional tale loosely based on alternative researchers of the modern era, including Chris Dunn, who wrote the Giza power plant theory. I beg your pardon. And yes, it's a fun story, but that's not what I'm really here to talk about today. It was basically when I was writing this, I actually stumbled upon the work of Dr. Rick Strassman on Joe Rogan's DMT, the Spirit Molecule documentary, when everything kind of, I guess, fell into place. Before this, however, I hadn't heard of DMT. It wasn't on my radar. I had no clue about it whatsoever. And in fairness, a lot of researchers, scientists and the like and writers still have no real idea what DMT is about today. And it's a very perplexing mystery. But it's a psychedelic chemical compound that's found. It permeates the natural world. It's found in almost all plants, animals, human beings. It's found in our brains, in our eyes, the cerebral cortex, the spinal fluid, and lungs. There's somewhat hearsay that it's produced by the pineal gland. We know it's in the pineal gland. It can be found in there, but where it's produced, we still don't know. But my curiosity was basically forever piqued, and I was simply blown away by what I'd seen with the show that Dr. Rick Strassman produced, as I said, with Joe Rogan. But even more astonishing was, for myself, was the fact that I knew that I'd seen the molecular structure, albeit a two-dimensional rendition of DMT somewhere before. But I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know where I'd seen it. But before all of this, though, I was actually privy to the research of Laird Scranton and the nomadic African tribe known as the Dogon, which I won't elaborate on too much, as the man himself will be here, no doubt, on Thursday, and he's going to blow your minds forevermore. But the Dogon were rather explicit in citing the cannabis was their go-to tree of life, and remained rather steadfast in believing that it came from Sirius, or at least the constellation of Canis Major, the big dog in the sky. And I thought, well, there's a pun here somewhere. Could they be serious? Is it really coming from outer space? What do they mean by this? But as you'll find out on Thursday through Led, that the Dogon were and still are in possession of a cosmology which certainly appears to mirror more than our own understanding of the subatomic realms of exploration. And to cut a long story short, I wondered if they'd meant something wholly allegorical, whereby cannabis came from space or something else entirely. But etymologically speaking, the prefix canna is associated with canine or dog, and the suffix bis or bi means two. So we've got it's linked etymologically, no doubt, but it's through French anthropologists Dieterle and Grill's book that they published in the middle of last century, The Pale Fox, that we discovered that the Dogon were in fact privy to Sirius being a binary star system. So they clearly knew something that we still can't explain today. What did they mean by cannabis's origins came from Sirius? I couldn't help wonder if there had to be a far more deeper meaning. If they were, as it appeared, scientifically savvy to the molecules and particles which make up the nuts and bolts of consensus reality, I couldn't help but think, could they be saying something more or less like, could cannabis be actually born of a structure similar to something that we witness in the night sky within the Sirian star system? A kind of as above, so below formula, if you like, which identifies the nature of cannabis through molecules and metaphor. So I decided to join the proverbial dots in the sky. And it admittedly, it wasn't a carbon copy. There's a pun there somewhere to do with the stars, but it was extremely close. And I wondered if there could be more. And again, it was through the work of Scranton that we learned that the Dogon were considered pre-dynastic ancient Egyptians themselves before migrating west to modern-day Mali sometime around 3100 BC. And I couldn't help think if this had been actually used as a tried and tested formula, somewhat borrowed, if you like, for their own from their own ancient Egyptian counterparts. And it was here that I guess synchronicity kind of played its part, and the timing was perfect. As I say, I was tying up my first book, Devolution Cycle, when I became privy to the Spirit Molecule documentary by Strassman and Rogan. It had basically finished, and I disappeared down to the beach. My mind was going in a million different directions, thinking, where have I seen this? Where have I seen this? It's so familiar to me, even though I'd just been introduced to this 2D rendering of the molecular structure of DMT only moments ago via my video screen. And I was sitting outside, as I say, on the beach in the dark, nice and cloudy night, and I was just relaxing, racking my brain. Where have I seen DMT before? Where have I seen this before? And it was almost scripted, like an epiphany, like the clouds literally parted, and there she was. It was Orion, DMT. It was the spirit in the sky, and it literally hit me like a cold bucket of water in the face. I was just completely astonished by what I was seeing. I knew the myth of Osiris and understood that Osiris, the god of resurrection and the other or underworld, was looked upon as the celestial hunter of the heavens, which was synonymous with Orion. But I also knew that Osiris was closely associated with the acacia, and that acacia was, I just found out due to the documentary I just watched, that it was a primary source of extractable DMT. And I was totally astonished. I really couldn't believe that no one had really put this together before. So I guess the myth of Osiris appeared as an allegorical. It appeared allegorical with regard to the otherworldly nature of DMT and where in the world we could actually find it or indeed extract it. So it was then that I decided to basically put pen to paper and publish the hypothesis of the spirit in the sky. And it's here where I guess the synchronicities just kept coming. I'm still kind of gobsmacked, and it rendered me speechless at the time, but I'd like to share this with you, because truth be told, at the time, I never wanted to become a parent, in so much that I didn't really want to bring a child into such a mad and mixed up, crazy world. But upon completing the book, in fact, the night it was actually published and went live on Amazon, I had a quiet word with the constellation of Orion, feeling quite stoked that I would just publish my second work, and was extremely excited about the publication. And deep down, I hoped that it would go some small way into basically making the world a better place, really. for want of a better description, I told Orion that I was ready. I was ready to become a dad, to become a father. If indeed this book, if I'd got it right with regards to what this mythological tale may or may not envisage with regards to the myth of Osiris and DMT therein, I thought to myself, well, let's do this. Let's maybe try for a child. And by twist of fate, my girlfriend at the time, she came home from work the next day, and she said, okay, you might want to sit down for this. And I knew exactly what she was going to say. She said to me, you're going to be a dad. I'm pregnant. And I just smiled and started crying. And the crazy thing with regards to this, I mean, the crazy kicker is that on the day my son was born, I left the hospital in a taxi because, I mean, I actually drove to the hospital, but I was just in bits. I was just shaking. I was all over the place. I'd just become a dad for the first time. Didn't really feel like I was up to driving. Jumped in a taxi. And the taxi driver switched the radio on. And what was playing on the radio? It was The Spirit in the Sky. And my mind was forever blown. And I just started crying again. It was absolutely amazing. So, yeah, that's a brief introduction to who I am and how I got here.
I think it'd be a good idea to see if anyone's actually got hold of your book and read it in here. So okay, excellent. Gabe has done that. So if we use the heart symbol to see how many people have actually read it, okay. And also, it'd be interesting to use, say, the clapping hands to see how many people have listened to you on a podcast before, because then you got a gauge of what information you can then pass across to people. Okay, so we've got Whitebeard, and also, again, I have to base this on people driving and not driving and what they can actually get hold of. If you want to read the book, okay, good. Yeah, so we've got Paranormal Blip is in. Nice to see you, Pete. Again, I will just quickly go through some of the people that are in the room that is worthwhile knowing about. Paranormal Blip, known as Pete, is a podcaster, and I'm going to let him speak now.
Sorry, Paul. I'm so rusty at this. I thought that was the wave symbol. I don't have anything to say that is, what's the word? Wise. I feel awful. I've got a terrible headache and a streaming cold. So I was just going to wave silently. So, yeah. But it's lovely to hear you, RN Vooght, and everyone else.
Sorry to hear that you've actually got a cold in this scenario. I know this is the second one you've had this year. And obviously, feeling that way, we will obviously look at whatever symbols you put up and give them the benefit of the doubt what goes on. You've also got Natural Born Alchemist, who's also a podcaster, does very well on the psychedelic and cultural kind of episodes of talking to people. And as I said before, you've got Mike Frito, who's is an author. He is a decent author, but sometimes using phrasing like that. And you got Myron Dahl, who's an artist, also a mystic as well. And you got Dr. M and also Mark Allen on UFO research and paranormal unconsciousness, as well as Wild Eyes and Trent, my man, how are you doing? Of continuing the conversation. Nice to see you pop in. I've given you the option to pick up for speaking. And when it comes down to reading Rex Richards' books, they're very easy to get on with. They're not pitched in a high technical term languages and words. You can easily sit down and go through them and understand easily without having to go and reference other bits and pieces. But obviously he's got a lot more information which would have come out in separate volumes, which I think is the best thing to say, isn't it, Richard?
Yeah, no doubt. And I appreciate that you say that. Thank you very much. My initial target audience was to basically put this in layman's terms, because, I mean, as I said, essentially that's what I am as well. I'm not a scientist, not a geologist, not an Egyptologist, XYZ. I'm just a really curious and passionate guy, trying to find out some of the mysteries in life. Where do we come from? Where are we going? What's next? And so on, I appreciate the kind words that you said about the book. I mean, initially I wrote The Spirit in the Sky, and it was pretty much 4 times as long as the finished article is today. But due to the nature of self-publishing via Amazon, it basically turned out that the book was going to cost 4 times the amount to produce, and therefore for the public to purchase. And realistically, no one would have touched it with a barge pole, you know. I mean, if the likes of Graham Hancock writes a book and puts it out there for in excess of 40 odd English pounds, you're going to struggle somewhat, thinking, man, that's a lot of money for a book. So, yeah, I had to try and shave the sides down and make it a lot more digestible in order to market it and pitch it to the public, really. But that said as well, I do have to thank Graham Hancock for his support. Realistically, he's recognised my research, and he's given me the major honour in my life, anyway, of issuing one of my articles in the book, The Spirit in the Sky, Ancient Cosmological Gods and Where in the World We Find Them, as author of the month, which has given me a platform to do what I'm doing today and to continue writing. And yeah, I can't thank people like that enough, you know. May long it continue. So yeah, thanks, Paul.
Not a problem. So we can open the floor up for questions. So once we see hands go up, then obviously we'll make a note and bring them up. I know Trent will want to. The hand goes up, and lo and behold, right. Yes, Whitebeard.
Hey, Richard. I would love to, I'm sure this is in your book, so I apologize, but I'd love to hear you expand a little bit more verbally on your association with DMT and Osiris. As far as I understand, when you die, we get a flux of DMT, or some have led to the possibility that when we have an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience, perhaps this is also a flush of DMT. And I don't view this as like as an hallucinatory type thing where we're just having a reaction, but perhaps the DMT breaks the filters in the brain and it allows you to rewire or have a rebirth. And I'm wondering, I'd like to hear your words and how you relate this to the story and the analogy of the
series. You, Whitebeard, just to check to see, I'm hearing your audio not clearly. Just want to check with Melissa and Richard to see if they can hear you clearly, and it's just issues on my end.
You're cutting out a little bit, Whitebeard. I can still understand what you're saying. Like, I caught it all. But it's just, it sounds like you're cutting in and out a little bit.
Okay, how about now? Is it better?
Yeah, that's
Go
much
for
better.
a full sentence, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's up.
No, it's not a problem. As long as we catch it, so you don't have to repeat it too many times.
What I was saying is I'd love to get your opinion. As I said, I know it's probably in your book, so I apologize, but I'd love to hear you say, your opinion verbally. How you relate, your experience with DMT to the story of Osiris, and meaning that, when it's known when we die, we have a flush of DMT. And some have led to the idea that when we have an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience, we also have a flush of DMT, possibly. And I don't view this as like a hallucinatory thing, but more of like the DMT breaks the filters in your brain and you're able to view more and maybe possibly rewire and rebirth. And I'm curious how you associate this with the analogy of Osiris.
Okay, I've got the best part of that. So, I
think he's got to not walk around a lot, because I think that's what's possibly causing the issue with Whitebeard's audio.
Yeah, I think that realistically, with regards to when we die, and this burst of DMT that's been put out there as a hypothesis. I mean, the hypothesis is. The jury's still out with regards to the nuts and bolts of if DMT has anything to do with, I don't know, the soul's progression into another immaterial reality or whatever it may or may not be. I know that the science at the moment is saying that within the brain, we understand that there's, I think, I hope I'm not gonna butcher this, but one of the latest papers was saying that there was something like a 600-fold increase in DMT at the moment of death in the brain. But because the amount of DMT that is endogenous in the brain, even though 600-fold sounds like a tremendous increase, I don't believe, as far as the science is aware at the minute, that would have too much of a profound effect with regards to the Descartes kind of hypothesis with regards to the gateway of the soul, like Strassman was saying, at birth and death, or a near-death experience, that DMT might have something to do with a pathway into another existence or the ether around us. Yeah, the science is, in my opinion, I think that the science is slowly starting to catch up with the mythology. The reason I say this is because I think and I'd like to believe that Laird's going to really impact this a lot more with regards to the citations that I hold Mr. Scranton to in both of my works regarding DMT and the hypothesis of Osiris, is that the Dogon they are indisputably in possession of a knowledge of the subatomic realms of biology and science that we're only starting to get a real clear perspective on today. And I'm sure that Laird's going to do that a world of justice come Thursday. But without that kind of sort of backbone per se, my hypothesis wouldn't really hold a lot of water. But because we find that the ancients were, I guess, privy to the subatomic realms for one reason or another. And I'm not saying, and I don't even think that Laird would even say that the Dogon understand the profundity or the significance with regards to the subatomic realms regarding their pictoglyphs, which basically mirror what you'd see on an astrophysicist's whiteboard in a 21st century laboratory today. But what they have done, because they've been so isolated per se, as a nomadic tribe in Western Mali, is that they haven't really been kind of poisoned or tainted by Western society. So they've kind of kept the nuts and bolts of their inherited knowledge, let's say, over the past 5,000 years or so. And it's becoming clear today that what they are in possession of is a science that realistically, historic record has no rhyme or reason for them to be in possession of such a savvy science. And going back to, I mentioned Graham Hancock with regards to the
okay, Richard, Sam's got his hand up, so I just want to make sure that we keep on with where the questions come from. But the other good thing is that with Laird's work, the symbology with the Dogons for cosmology, biology, and there's a third set, all the imagery almost matches up without having to change the symbols. They can depict the same things, which is fascinating.
Entirely. And it's not just that the Dogons' symbology is marrying up with modern day science. It appears to be marrying up with the same cosmologies that we're seeing across an otherwise interconnected globe, which must have at one point in time been connected, because they're all remembering a certain allegorical mythology that makes scientific sense in the 21st century. And it's almost beyond explanation. And unfortunately, it's been labeled as a pseudoscience instead of science.
So true. Sam, I know we haven't spoken before, so I'm gauging what's going on.
Hello. Sam speak. So Mike Fiorito had his hand up as well.
Hang on, who had what? Where? When?
Sorry, Mike Fiorito, he had his hand up, but then he put it down. So I don't know if you still want to speak, Mike.
Otherwise, it's a fist fight. Sam, then Mike. Which one first? That's going to be it.
Go ahead, Sam. Thank you, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Mike. And good call, Melissa. You got to be in order. Everything's got to go right. I really appreciate your guys' time. I've never read your books, but they're on my list now because I'm a huge fan of Graham Hancock and just alternative history and that kind of stuff. I've been looking into consciousness and stuff for a long time, and definitely aware of the Dogon tribe. And something that's been interesting me lately, which I think is kind of lining up with what you're talking about, is looking into a lot of these old civilizations and old cultures and their religions and their practices and their art even. And you find a lot of similarities and a lot of threads that go between almost all cultures, especially the older ones. and especially in terms of their non-physical reality, their descriptions of non-physical reality of the spirit world or astral world or what have you. And I'm starting to become humbled as I look into more history and more religious history, especially from the perspective of were these people aware of a non-physical world, the type of world we're trying to decipher now in ufology and even like spiritualism and stuff, the spirit realm. And what has occurred to me, and I would like to know your thoughts on this, but what's occurring to me recently is that a lot of these old myths and old rituals and these things that I tried to decipher through different lenses of things, it's starting to match up with a lot of the quantum physics and the physicist descriptions of the universe and of time and of consciousness. And I wonder, have you found any similarities between like the idea of these other non-physical realities, these astral worlds, these spirit realms that we kind of look over today with science? We don't really acknowledge it, but right now it seems like they're being married. And do you see any threads between this astral world and the types of sciences and religious ideas and that you're finding as you dig deep into the archaeology?
Yeah, that's a great perception, and one that again I keep reverting back to Laird Scranton, but it was through Scranton's research that he talks about. It goes back to the Dogon once again, and how the Dogon science and symbology relates alongside almost mirror image of the Buddhist cosmology. Now, the Buddhist cosmology talks about how they were basically bestowed their profound information and religious beliefs from a non-human source, which doesn't make much sense outside of the ufology crowd. But that said, the Dogon, we find out, were a lot more explicit when stating that their cosmology was bestowed to them via not so much a non-human form, but a non-material form. And the Dogon cosmology, if I've got this correct, talk about the birth of our own universe alongside a immaterial twin universe, if that makes any sense, whereby where we are in the material world, we have let's say an incomplete understanding of the cosmos, but because we're material beings, we have the tools to act upon our thoughts and our actions. But the Dogon state that the immaterial world have a perfect knowledge and a fundamental understanding of all things relating to the nature of the cosmos and reality. But because they're immaterial, they don't have the tools at their disposal to act upon their knowledge. Although that said, there comes a time through the cycles of precession, which might go quite hand in hand with the Hindu cosmology regarding the yugas and the yuga cycles, whereby we have a rise and fall of ages with a golden age that will rise and reach a peak and then descend. But there comes a time whereby, let's say, the sand in the hourglass is perfectly balanced and the immaterial have almost a stitch in time where they can act with the material and possibly impart knowledge that's otherwise inaccessible for the material world from the immaterial other, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It does, and also the fact that he ties it with the Chinese, the Maori, the Orkney Islands, and obviously Egypt and other places, and it all seems to be coming from the same source information, doesn't it?
Indeed. And you'll find that whether it's Maori, ancient Egyptian, Mayan, Aztec, Hindi, you name it. The construction techniques that we see around the globe were quite clearly used from the same template, let's say. And unfortunately, the archaeologists and Egyptologists of the day, they just refute it. They say, no, it's not possible. It's not possible. But I mean, what are they looking at? They're obviously not looking at the same monuments and the same construction techniques and the same cosmologies and the same thought process that seems to be repeated across a globe that is otherwise understood being not in direct contact, but they're using the same hymn sheet, let's say, and it's just extremely frustrating. You can see why the likes of the Hancocks of the world find it so frustrating. You know, for I don't know how long we've been saying sorry, my phone just glitched out. Are you there?
Nope, you're still here. That's okay.
Okay, no, my phone glitched out. I do apologise.
I thought you disappeared.
No, it's okay.
We got Mike. Yeah, so obviously when it was a fight between Mike and Sam, and it's nice to see you, Sam, first-time person coming here, obviously. How did you find us, by the way, Sam? Just a quick one.
I follow and am in groups with a lot of the people here listening, like
Excellent.
Whitebeard, and so just super circle of friends.
When you have the opportunity, or if you want, we do have an events list in the account bio. And as you heard, Led Scranton will be talking on Thursday with us, which has just been arranged. We also have other podcasts with other people that have been in here before. So like we have a podcast that's been done with Paranormal Blip about reincarnation. We've talked to Marendal, and we got a 4-hour podcast there. Mike Frito's one still in editing. And we have many other people still in editing at the moment with me.
Okay.
So if you can pick and choose if you can't ever make a live event.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to give you guys a follow, and this is going to be on my radar for years to come, I'm sure. Congratulations on your 6-month anniversary.
Thank you very much.
Wish the best for you guys, and I'm going to be listening and popping in with questions as they come.
Oh, superb. Put the hand up. We're quite happy because then we make sure everyone gets the opportunity. So we go to Mike, then Myron, and then obviously we've got yourself under control. We just had a message from Trent, as in continuing the conversation. He's driving. He wants to get somewhere safe so he can actually put a question to you. Again, continuing the conversation podcast is a very good one about psychedelics, how life is, and just general things of what people like in books. They've created a community, and that is a fantastic one to listen to. So, Mike, you're up.
Thanks, Paul. And Sam, you had just joined, so I wanted to give you the floor. Welcome new guests. I wanted to, Rick, by the way, nice to meet you. We've known each other on the etherwebs for some time and familiar with your work. I think last year I participated in a research study at Johns Hopkins, and they're very interested. There's a real interest now in asking. Researchers want to know, if you take psychedelics, do you have encounters with non-human intelligences or alien intelligences, whatever word you want to use. So that seems to be something people are very curious about. I know Rick Strassman explores that in depth as well. Do you think that is, and this is, I realize it's pure speculation, but is DMT, or are these tools given to us as a way of communicating with other beings? Do you think, or is that just a far-fetched question?
No, I don't think it's far-fetched at all. In fairness, I don't think anything's off the table, they say DMT finds you, you don't find DMT. And even prior to, I published The Spirit in the Sky, and I had DMT it was not on my radar. I had no first-hand experience, let's say, and I was writing the book basically on affidavits of others. And to cut a long story short, DMT found me, and it's very, very, very hard, almost nigh on impossible, to verbalize the DMT experience. For all intended purposes, it almost at least in my experience, and from friends and fellow researchers, I felt it sounds so cliche, but I genuinely felt one with the universe. I felt like I had a higher understanding, but I was in safe, warm, and loving hands. And admittedly, the threshold experience prior to the initial breakthrough was absolutely terrifying. There's no two ways of putting it. I genuinely thought I was dying, which is, yeah, it's no over elaborated way to explain it, because essentially the DMT experience, it pretty much tricks your brain into a death-like state and puts you on almost fight or flight, you know. But with that initial third or fourth hit of DMT, and the all-encompassing fear that comes along with it, because as I say, I mean, I was a dad to a newborn son who was 6 months old, and with my experience, I was lying on the balcony of my flat, the sunshine streaming through the window, and for all intended purposes, I thought, oh my God, I'm the first person in history that's actually going to die on DMT. You know, my girlfriend's going to come home with my newborn son, and I'm going to be dead. That's exactly what it felt like, and it was absolutely terrifying. And that's when I experienced the Terence McKenna archetype machine elves streaming through the window, which were no less terrifying at the time. But I actually felt, I remember my head lolling to the side, and I looked at the brickwork, and I still have the thought in my mind whereby I looked at the brickwork and I realized that even the brickwork was me. Everything in the room was me. I had a moment of almost divine clarity that, I might be dying, but everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be just fine. And I guess for all intended purposes, I was given a whistle-stop tour of the cosmos and the nuts and bolts that make up consensus reality. And I came back shaking, literally shaking like a leaf, phoned my best friend and said, look, dude, can you hear me? Because I think I just died. I mean, I feel like a ghost right now. I'm absolutely petrified. I don't know what I've seen, but I can't put it into words. But for the first time ever, I don't want to die, but I'm not afraid of dying. And for me, I was brought up under the impression that when you die, it's fade to black. You just dust and bones. That's it. There's nothing more. It's game over. I'm glad you enjoyed the ride. There's nothing else to see here. But after that initial experience, I'm literally the flip side of the coin. It couldn't be any further from the truth as far as I'm concerned. And I know a lot of people that have had the experience as well that would agree with me that when you come back from this DMT experience, you come into this kind of clammy, sticky, sweaty meat suit that's kind of, it's a weird adjustment, let's say. But once the DMT has actually passed through your blood-brain barrier and you're back down to baseline levels, I think that it gives you an all-encompassing respect for the immaterial, for the ether, for the metaphysical. And I hate to say it, but I mean, I've never thought that we were alone in the universe. I never believed that for 1 minute that, I guess, aliens, beings, whatever you want to call them, that are going to visit Earth in tin pot baked bean can spaceships and then fly back home reporting on what they had seen. I just thought that was a little bit kind of far-fetched with the size and distances of the universe, you know. But once I've had this DMT experience, I will say it. I had a UFO encounter as I was coming down from DMT, and there's in my mind's eye now, it wouldn't surprise me if the UFO, the UAP phenomena is around us almost 24/7, but we don't actually have the tools at our disposal to actually perceive it with regard to the minimalistic expanse of the electromagnetic wave spectrum that we're privy to as human beings on planet Earth. You know, for 100% of the electromagnetic spectrum, we see what we call consensus reality accounts for 0.0035% of that spectrum. The rest, it's invisible to us. We don't know what's there. And I think that the likes of Dennis McKenna saying that DMT is a reality modulator or a reality switch, I don't think he's too far from the truth, because when that switch was thrown in my brain, I saw things that I didn't think was possible. And I stand by them. I stand by what I've seen. And the immaterial reality that this substance took me to for a fleeting moment, it most certainly seemed realer than the telephone that I'm holding in my hand now. You know, it was, again, almost indescribable. I don't think that there's actually words in the human vocabulary to describe what else is out there.
Oh, definitely. We got messages coming in, by the way. Imagine Traveller, as in Eileen Meyer, she's sending her warmest thoughts to you, but she's cramming for her final exam at the moment and presentation. And she is grateful that we're actually recording this, which obviously that could have gone so badly if I hadn't and actually realized I hadn't pressed the start record button. And again, with the quick one on Mike, I presume with his question, it's probably best to imagine a spring suspended from a ceiling and a weight below it. And when that weight is released, that's like the DMT sending you back to what is originally wherever you come from, rather than your human body being your originating point. You're going back to whatever the source is.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. Crikey, I genuinely thought that after I'd had this experience, I can't wait to get back there. I want to find out more about this. I want to try and work this all out. But if my cards are on the table, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified, because the feeling of, call it ego death, call it what you want, but I genuinely thought I was dying. I genuinely thought I'm the guy that's going to be in the paper, that I'm the first guy that's died on DMT, because that's how it felt. That's how it felt.
A man who can obviously relate to the closeness of kind of the death relation is Myron, and he's got his hand up, and then we've got obviously centered awareness there. Good evening, Myron.
I had my hand up to let you know that Myron had a question, so it's all good.
So am I allowed to speak?
You can.
Oh, okay. Fire away, my friend.
Now a lot of the people here know my story, so I don't want to go through the whole thing again. But as far as Orion is concerned, I have temporal lobe epilepsy, and when I was 4, I was in a coma. When I came out of the coma, I was 3 or 4 months, something like that. That's 1948, so they didn't really know very much about anything in 1948. They don't know that much about anything now. Well, anyway, I came out of the coma, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know my folks. I didn't know anybody. And in the room was a being standing in the corner, and I saw it clearly, and that I felt at home with that being, but I didn't know my parents, my brother. I didn't know who the doctors were. I didn't know that those were doctors. I didn't know that the nurses were nurses, but I knew that this being standing in the corner, I knew that being. Okay. So I come out of the coma and I have to relearn all the basics of functionality of your body and your mind and how to speak and The only thing that was not blocked was music. I could play music before the coma, and I could play after. I could play the music after, because that's a different part of the brain. My brain tumor is in the hippocampus, so I have temporal lobe epilepsy. Well, anyway, fast forward about 2 or 3 months, maybe a little longer than that. I really don't remember too much. I was talking to my friend, as I call it, the spirit that was with me. Sometimes it was male, sometimes it was female, sometimes it was just ether. But we were talking one day, as friends do, and now my parents, of course, did not see this being. Anyway, we were talking one day, and it was early afternoon, and we were outside, and I was supposed to be just resting and all that, and recovering from all the medicine that they had pumped me with, mostly phenobarbital, but a lot of other stuff too. And I was looking up in the sky, and there was Orion. And now, of course, I was 5 years old. I didn't know Orion from Mickey Mouse. So Charon, my spirit guide, later on would be called Charon, my friend, said to me, "You see that star, those two stars, and the one that is adjacent? That's Orion. That's what some people call Orion." That's what she said. What some people call Orion, but you are from a star around that third star in Orion's belt, and it's called Zelkon. This planet is called Zelkon. And now, if you just kind of think about that statement, there's no way a 5-year-old is going to know Orion is Orion in the first place. And to be told that that's where you're from, and that we went there many, many times, in fact, thousands of times now. But it was interesting that this spirit guide of mine used that term, Orion, because, like you said, it could have been Osiris, it could have been anything. I don't know why she picked Orion as a name, but that's what she called it. But the planet was clearly Zelkon, which is around, which rotates around that third star in Orion's belt, and then years later, I was studying Gnosticism, and the basic premise of Gnosticism is that you're in exile. Earth is exile. Earth is kind of like hell. So you're in exile. And then the process in Gnosticism is that you feel a call. That's the first part of the process. You're called from this other place. And then after the call, there comes an awareness that you are not from here. You're in exile from here. And so after you figure out that you're in exile, the next stage of it is to accept the fact that you're in exile. And then after you accept the fact that you're in exile, then your mind is open to your real home. Now, that's a Gnostic text that's thousands of years old. And it fit what happened to me like a glove, because I was told by Charon years later that I was from that star, from that planet, Zelkon. I know this sounds crazy, so if you think I'm crazy, well, it's okay. But the fact is that I go to Zelkon all the time. Now, I go out of body. I don't go there in a spaceship. And I had real heartburn about UFOs and all the rest of it. I think it's nonsense. And I did for as long as I can remember, even before I read Whitney Strieber's book, Communion. I'd read quite a bit, and even Jung had talked about that the mythos of the future would be in space. If in the past it was on the Earth, and then in the future it would be in space. So, but I didn't pay much attention to that, and so I've been going to Zelkon for 74 years now. 74 years. And I can go there in an instant, in a second. I can be there now and talk to you here on this phone and walk it and travel it and explore it and all the rest. And
just a quick one for you, Myron. When you say you go, is that because of the epilepsy releases you to go, or it's a conscious decision that you go?
I just decide to go. Or Charon,
so that's quite...
Or Charon says we're going to Zelkon today.
So you don't really whichever at the time sexuality Charon is, she's the deciding factor to kind of release you, that spring kind of recoil back to Zelkon in a manner, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't do anything metaphysically that Charon doesn't tell me that we're going to do. She like, for instance, she's standing right here, right next to me. And if she said to me, okay, we're going to go to Zelkon now, then part of my consciousness would go to Zelkon and the rest would remain here talking to you. Now, I know that sounds weird, but I think that time and space are a weird kind of thing. And I can be in multiple places at one time. When I started doing out-of-body experiments, I could find myself walking the same sidewalk at different times of my life, but not touching myself, And as a matter of fact, I'll close with this one little story.
But just before we get onto the story, I think Sam wants to possibly ask a question about what you were talking about, because his hand's gone up, so I'll just make sure that happens.
Thank you. I actually did have a question for Myron regarding his experience. And this might sound off the wall, but quick question for you, Myron. And also, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, this is very deeply personal. Obviously, it's an experience that not a lot of people can identify with. But I don't think you have to preface. I don't think you have to preface anything here. The vibe I'm getting is that you don't have to preface anything here with, I know this sounds crazy, but, because I think we're in the woo already, right? But
right.
Quick question for you. Before this experience, or just in general growing up, how would you describe your ability to visualize things in your mind's eye? Like if I said, close your eyes, imagine an apple. Was that fairly easy for you, or would you find things like that difficult the more complex you would get down the line of objects or anything? Do you have any memories of that?
The whole world to me, from the time I came out of the coma, looked different.
Fair enough.
It didn't. Remember, I was trying to reconstruct what I had lost.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to put the puzzle back together again. And I'm not sure that I ever achieved that. I don't know that the world is back the way that say friends of mine who are sitting here yesterday saw the world. That I think
For
I see
sure.
the world completely different than they do.
And
I'm sure that
can you
most
quickly
people do.
describe the world that you saw, like in your experience in that world? Because I personally believe that everybody's perception might be a little bit different. So I think it would.
You're
behoove us
definitely in the
all-
right spot. We discuss everything like brain injuries, everything in here. And if you get the opportunity, have a look at Myron's website, as in myrondull.com, and look at his artwork as well, because that represents it very well.
To help our research and understanding, leave Perceptions Today's podcast reviews, subscribe to the podcast, along with the other social media accounts, and share. Come and join our live events. That way we can get together and have thoughtful discussions along with advancing our understanding of concepts as we go along.